edition, March edition of Tea with Lisa. This month our topic is going to be peer support, and I've got two special guests here with me today, Ken Mitchell and Linda Pogue, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you and tell you a little bit about who they are and what they do. And we also have a live studio audience this time, so we have a live audience this time, so this will be a first. So we'll start with you, Ken. You want to tell us who you are and what you do?
Well, thank you, Lisa. My name is Ken Mitchell. I am I'm a consumer for Center of Independent Living in Atlanta, Georgia. I've done a couple of groups and seminars working with people with disabilities. I've had a little bit of experience going through the different levels for Centers for Independent Living throughout Georgia.
Okay. And Linda, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Linda Pogue, as you so accurately said, and I work at Disability Link, which is the Centre for Independent Living that serves Metro Atlanta, just like Walton Options serves these parts of the counties in the state. And while I used to work full-time, now I've retired from full-time work, and I'm lucky enough to be able to make visits such as this to Walton Options to talk about peer support, advocacy, independent living, all the good stuff as far as I'm concerned.
All right, and that's pretty much the same thing you do too, Ken?
Yeah, in the past worked with Disability Link as well in Atlanta, and been part of a couple of national organizations with involving independent living.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, I guess the first big question for you both is, can you tell us what peer support is? Now, who wants to go first on that one?
You're pointing at Lisa?
I'm gesturing.
Gesturing.
All right, so I guess that will be Linda. You tell us what peer support is.
Well, I have lots of words to say about peer support, but simply put, should I say, peer support is literally one person supporting another person. In the disability community, we consider that one person with a disability supporting another person with disability, and that's important because nobody knows what it's like to live your life, and one of the things that peer supporters can do is ensure that our peers understand that this is their life, and they get to say what happens, and sometimes we need a bit of support to do that.
Yeah. Ken, you want to add to that?
I don't know how much I can add to that. It's the same definition I guess I would use, adding the fact that peer support, one person with a disability supporting another person with disability, has some positive effects because no one knows about a particular person's life with that person. So it's easier to kind of relate some of your experiences to someone who may have some similar experiences.
And I guess it's important to add too that peer support is one of the 5 core services for all.
I think you probably should mention that.
For all centers for independent living, and that's pretty much true. That's true of every center for independent living.
Yes, peer support is actually the tool of independent living, or one of the major tools of independent living. That's how Centers for Independent Living make a distinction in their world, because we talk about our peers, we make sure that people get support to reach the goals that they've decided upon.
Yeah. Okay. Ken, you have something you wanted to add?
No, Linda's doing a good job so far.
Thank you.
Okay. So it seems like we already have some questions from the audience, so we'll start with you, sir. Ask your question.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Strickland. I'm an options counselor here at Walton Options, and I would like to know, as a peer supporter, how can I help others to be better self-advocates?
You go first, Cam.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So one of the things that I think might be important as a peer supporter is actually your own experiences. Usually, sometimes it's easier to translate information by going through things that you've done yourself, and therefore you're advocating the peer support experience to the peer without being kind of overbearing, and therefore they are learning how to be a peer supporter and an advocate through the information that you are giving them.
Oh. Okay. All right. So Linda, you want to follow up with that?
I certainly do. Thank you, Cam. Obviously, it depends on a situation. Everything is a little bit different. But one of the tenets of peer support is to recognize that you're supporting somebody, it's that person's life that is the important one in that particular moment. So what is it that there is their goal? So once you've established what a goal is, then you're working as a peer supporter to help somebody to unravel those bits, to learn what is the steps that are required to obtain that goal. And you're doing that with your own personal knowledge and your personal experience of resources in your own life and so on. But if somebody is not practicing their self-advocacy, it's you doing it as a peer supporter and not the peer. And as we just said, this is all about the peer. So self-advocacy, speaking up for oneself, is an important skill that we learn in various circumstances. And as peer supporters, we encourage our peers to be a little bit more confident, a little bit more skilled, a little bit more targeted about their advocacy to make it successful. I hope that helps. Thank you for the question.
Our next question.
Hey everyone, my name is Maya Rogers and I'm the public health specialist and options counselor here at Walton Options. And my question is, can anyone be a peer supporter?
Okay, good question. Linda, you want to start this?
Let's take this one. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, anybody can be a peer supporter to their peer. When we are thinking of the disability community, however, we're thinking only people with disabilities are going to be peer supporters in our particular community. So we get information and ideas from lots of people in our lives. But when it comes to actually living with a disability, the experience of disability, then it is our peer supporter who is going to help us to move forward with our goals, with our life, with our dreams, with the things that we'd like to change in our lives. So yes, anybody could be a peer supporter, but in the disability community, we think only other people with disabilities can understand us and appreciate and support us in a way that's meaningful.
Ken, you want to add to that?
Yeah, as Linda said, that anybody can be a peer supporter with a person with a disability. That's true. One of the things that I always think about is that in our daily lives, we're peer supporters by giving our own experiences to other people with disabilities. So in a way, we're kind of already a peer supporter. But however, there are different steps to be a peer supporter with Centers for Independent Living, to be kind of certified in that particular way. So to answer your question, can anybody be a peer supporter? Yes. To be a peer supporter under the disability community is the one person with a disability supporting another person with a disability. That part is true as well, yes. And the third part is the certification as a peer supporter, which has some kind of guidelines, steps, and some information from other peers that you will get through that particular course or certification.
Okay, so Ken, you mentioned something about getting certified. So can you speak a little bit more about that? How does a person go about getting certified if they were interested in doing something like that? What would be the first step?
Well, thank you for asking that. So for me, I started about, I'm going to say maybe 15 years ago or something like that. And there was this lady from England giving the class. And she told me about peer support and some of the things that that accompanied it with. And so I took a class. I don't know if it was a week or 3 days. It seems like such a long time ago. And had some guidelines and principles about peer support that I hadn't anticipated prior to that, and some ideas and talked about independent living and talked about self-care, and it's a whole bunch of different aspects of it. So this lady, I luckily asked me one day, they said, would you like to support me in this? And next thing I knew, I was working with her, and I'd like to introduce you to that lady now. It's Linda.
That was almost nice.
So how, if I'm a person, a consumer, and I'm hearing about this, and then I think, I might want to do some peer support. What would I need to do, or how often does training happen, or kind of, can you walk us through that a little bit?
I could. Let's think. There's lots of different things to say about this. So this peer support training has been going on for about 20 years in Georgia. And it started with a federal grant. And the federal grant was mostly about helping people get out of institutions and subsequently led to money follows the person. But the point is that there was an aspect of peer support in that grant. And of course, the federal government asked the Georgia state government to do that. Well, the Georgia state government doesn't know very much about peer support. So rightly, they turned to the disability community and said, can you help us gather the best way to undertake peer support? And that's how the training program was developed. And it's people from all over Georgia helped to create it and add their own flavor to it. And so I've been lucky enough to be involved with it from the beginning. Pure luck, I was in the right place at the right time to do that. And so now, if somebody would be interested in learning more about peer support and possibly being certified in peer support in the independent living community in Georgia, then you want to participate in one of the classes, a 3-day class that we provide in Centers for Independent Living and other organizations all around Georgia. Here we are, particularly in Walton Options. So if you're in this vicinity, you'll be speaking to your independent living specialist or somebody at Walton Options and say, I'd like to learn more about peer support. And then there would be an opportunity to participate in the class and practice the skills and become certified and maybe be able to use those skills in a really meaningful way. That'd be fantastic.
Okay, so they would just need to call here to the office and then speak to an independent living advocate. And then how often do you do the training? Like, how often do you come to Walton Options to do a
Walton
training?
Options, we have a very special relationship. You're very hospitable and you invite us on a very regular basis. But there usually is a 3-day training 2-3 times a year in different locations. So you might have to wait a while.
Okay.
But Walton Options has a great opportunity for not just taking those 3-day classes, but using those peer support skills to develop our independent living skills further.
Okay, so you and Ken both teach together, or do you ever go separate and teach?
So this is Ken. Most of the time we are working together. However, there has been some smaller classes, smaller units where we might do it individually.
Okay. So generally, I'm guessing it would work better in a group setting, so you can kind of bounce ideas off each other
There you
and that
go.
kind of.
Exactly.
So it would work better that way. Okay.
And it's more fun to be
Yeah.
with people, learning from other people. That's what it's all about.
Oh, okay. All right. Do we have another audience question? Yes, ma'am.
My name is IL advocate for Walton Options, and my question is, why should someone seek out peer support services?
First.
I'll start it out. One of the reasons why I did it was because I wanted to have a relationship with my disability community, and I also needed to have some different perspectives about how I contacted, how I communicated with the disability community. Not that mine was right or wrong, but there was a bunch of different ways of communicating with various across disabilities and understanding the different disabilities. I happen to be blind, and I'm just saying in the blind community, I know it's hard to believe, but there's the different perspectives because everybody's different. Everybody has their own individual stuff. So in the disability community and across disabilities, everybody's an individual. And so as a peer supporter, it's important that we get a perspective of the cross disability community and be able to communicate that.
Linda, you want to add to
I
that?
certainly would like to add to that. Thank you. It's been my experience that mostly people do not come to a Centre for Independent Living and say, I would like peer support, because that's just not a very well-known consideration. Usually people turn up, do they not, at Centres for Independent Living and say, I'm stuck, I don't like where I am, I want to change something, everything's wrong, it's not good, those kinds of concerns. And then it's the job of the folks at the Independent Living Centre to make sense of that and tease that out until you found out what goals people are wanting. And that process of teasing out is part of peer support. And then the process of being supported while you work towards your own goals. That's peer support. So I would say most people wouldn't come and say, I would like peer support. Most people would come and say, I want to change something about my life, or some version of that. And peer support works to help people unravel, move forward. And then, as a peer supporter, you can show how the disability community supports one another, how we understand that we have understanding that other people don't when it comes to our community. So, good question. Thank you.
So would you would you say, in your opinion, if a person is blind, should they be necessarily paired up with a advocate that is blind, or do you think they could get equal benefits of peer support from someone who maybe is a wheelchair user or something? What's your opinion or your thoughts on that?
So my opinion on that is that I don't think that a person has to have the same disability in order to benefit from another person with a disability. The interesting thing about peer support is that there's many things that have shared experiences. It may, Linda will often relates to me and says, I happen to want a lot about accessible transportation, and you don't have to be blind to know that there's not much accessible transportation or accessible housing or equal education or employment or transition or a number of things.
The list goes on.
Well, so you don't have to have the same disability,
Okay.
but often there's shared experiences. So my thing would be parents somebody with something that has a shared experience, whatever that is. It might be a little bit more important so you can relate with that.
So it might not necessarily have to be the same type of disability, but
No.
maybe they come from a similar background or something along those lines.
Something with shared experience. It doesn't be necessarily
Yeah.
background, but just, you don't have to be a blind person to know, I'll just use transportation again,
Yeah.
to know that it's difficult to get transportation. You could be a wheelchair user. You could not have a vehicle. And to understand that that's an experience, that's an issue that may have some concern to you.
Okay. Linda, you want to add to that?
Yes, please. Thank you. I would say that there is nobody who has the same disability as you, right?
That's a good point.
Because we have a lot of characteristics that we share, but the point is, in the disability community, we recognize the uniqueness of us all. Yes, of course, there are people who are going to have more similar experiences than us. But I think we do ourselves a disservice in our community if we think that only somebody with the same label can be somebody who can support, because we are so much more than a label, so much more. So you can find out about all kinds of things hanging out with somebody who has a slightly different life than you. That's how you broaden your ideas. This is how you gather more resources and more opportunities and more relationships and so on, which is part of the role of peer support to help people expand their life into something that they want.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Applause that, okay?
We have another question from the audience, sir.
Yeah, well, you spoke a little bit about it, but I'd like to hear a little bit more. What is the role of a peer supporter?
Well, we'll let Ken do that because
Okay,
he's
Ken.
very skilled.
Over to you, Ken.
The role of a peer supporter. So my suggestion to that, sir, is that the role as a peer supporter is to support another person with a disability. And one of the things in the class that I kind of emphasize for myself is that we don't necessarily help a particular person. We're not there to help you. We're here to support you. We're not there to take you through a particular thing, but a peer support is there to support you along whatever your goals are, whatever your needs are, whatever you decide to do. It's not a thing that the peer supporter wants. For instance, if you say my goal is 1, 2, 3, I'm not there to make sure you get to 1, 2, 3. I'm there to support you to get to 1, 2, 3, so that your goal and your issue or your thing is taken on by you, empowered by you instead of empowered by me. It's your goal, it's your thing. You are responsible for whatever it is that you decide to do.
I would like to add, obviously, I always like to include more than anything that Karen said, and I'm being cheeky, that the role of peer support is something that we can discuss in a 3-day training, actually. You could learn all about the role in that 3-day training about peer support. So it sounds so easy, doesn't it? One person supporting another person, and it is, in one degree, it is easy to consider that. But what we also know is there are lots of nuances about supporting people in a way that isn't determining anything for them. It's about asking questions that help to pull out the thoughts, the ideas that help people to reach their goals. It's about adding some personal experiences, maybe, in some situations that would encourage people to share more of themselves, or to recognize that we do share experiences in the disability community, even though we have our own lives. It's about all the things that I like to talk about in our 3-day training about peer support. There's a lot of stuff about being the best support, the peer supporter that we can be, the very best we can be. Because this is so fundamental to the success of people in the disability community that we want to do it the very best we can. We know, do we not, that there are far too many people with disabilities who are sitting at home, not pursuing their goals, watching TV, not thinking that they're able to live the life that they would want.
All right, so I do have a question about the role of peer supporter. Can a peer supporter give advice, or is that something they should not do? Or can you speak a little bit on that? How's that? 'Cause I know it's human nature for us to want to give advice to someone. So what, as a peer supporter, is that a yes or a no?
Tough and good question.
So Ken, we'll start with you.
Tough and good question. So can you give advice? I'm going to say that you can give support. I don't know if advice would be a good word. For instance, it's so important that the peer, is responsible for their own life. The peer is the expert of their own life. So giving an advice, i.e., this is what I would do, might not be the way to go. I might say that you could give choices, a bunch of different choices, so that the peer would, make their own choice, and the peer would be the decision maker and not be influenced by the peer supporter.
So you kind of want to steer them away from getting advice from you.
Well, Linda might say that, yes.
So if they say, for example, can you tell me what I should do about XYZ situation? So you don't want to put yourself in the role of giving advice as a peer supporter.
So then this is me again. I would say that if they said, tell me what to do in XYZ, then I become the expert, and I'm not the expert. You are the expert of your own life. And so I might say, well, I don't know what you should do in that particular situation. What would you do? And they'll say whatever they say. I might also give a bunch of suggestions or something like that, and then they'll pick whatever they pick. And again, they've taken responsibility for their own life.
Okay, Linda, would you agree with that, or?
If I have to, I will agree. Well, here's my nuances, right? That one of the skills that we practice, isn't it, not to provide the answer for people, because, as Ken said, now you've become the expert. And so we're going to help people explore ideas. What would happen if you did this? What would you consider that? There's a whole range of ways of having that conversation that isn't about do this, don't do that. Even though, as you point out, it's so strong in many of us to want to say, and what you need to do is, and that's why we have classes, so that we don't say what you need to do is, we say, what have you thought about to address whatever issue is on your mind? It's about us supporting our peers, and in turn, they often support us back, of course.
I want to thank Linda and Ken for being my guests today, and answering all these questions about peer support and kind of hopefully getting some more information out about what it is and how it can benefit persons with disabilities. And I appreciate our audience. So they did really well, and all their questions. And this is our first time having an audience, so they did really well. And so I just want to remind you, next month is April. We're going to be doing autism. Our show focus is going to be on autism. So if you are in the CSRA area and you want to know more about peer support, just call Walton Options. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, right? No? Cut that. Cut that.
But give them the phone number.
Okay, it's what is it though? Facebook, Instagram, and
Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
oh, LinkedIn. Okay. So, okay, go back. So follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Our number here at Walton Options is 706-724-6262. It's 706-724-6262. And you can always go to waltonoptions.org. And that is all for our show today. So
Thank
we're
you.
waving
Thank you.
bye.